Well, good morning. Welcome to Mirador. And Model Railways we have coming up for you in a little while. We've got a whole potpourri of things this morning, but it is the eve of Bonfire, and let us not forget. And tomorrow night, hopefully, the streets will be full of colourful costumes, fireworks, tar barrels, flaming torches, and thousands of people. However, the prediction for the weather is not terribly good. It looks as if we're going to get some rain. Let's hope it holds off for the evening. We will be broadcasting from the White Hart, from our usual spot, from the balcony, from 6 o'clock onwards. The extravaganza, that is Bonfire Night in Lewes, and I hope that you'll join us with all your friends and your family to enjoy a very special evening. And really, it is getting underway because this is really the first full bonfire after lockdown. Last year was terrific. They did a wonderful job, but they were struggling back. Bonfire societies were struggling back from the effects of lockdown. This year, hopefully, we're going to see full force. Starting with the Maroon, which goes off at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning from the ramparts of Lewes Castle. And all in all, it's a jolly, jolly good day. Yes, it is. And I hope that you will join us. We've actually got some interesting people coming. We have... we're sending our feed to the Americas. So Suzanne Mouchot and Melissa Conti will be on deck, letting us know what the Americans think of it all, and with a little bit of comment about the fireworks and how impressed or otherwise they are. I'm sure they'll be very impressed. We have Jane Watkins in Hastings, keeping us up to date whether things are going on there and what her view is of the extravaganza in Lewes. And we have in the studio the mighty herd. Nick Bird is out on the streets, and we hope that we can give you a pretty fair reflection of what's going on. So it's all happening, and it will all happen tomorrow night. So let's get on with today's show, and we'll keep you informed about what we're up to. So let's see. Well, here we go. It is November the 5th, 2022. A word about yesterday. The downpour has caused flooding. It has there are various parts of East Sussex that are inundated with water. I heard this morning, for instance, that Uckfield wasn't faring too well, and some of the smaller towns. Lewes isn't doing too badly. And we're okay because we're on the high ground. Apart from being on the moral high ground, we're on the high ground and can avoid the floods. So a good refuge, come in and have a gin and tonic or a brandy or even just a coffee in the White Hart because it's the place to be. You're greeted by two gorgeous ladies, Sally and Jane, who are always full of smiles and look after you as if you were at home. So do drop by. They love to see you. And even if you're just coming here to park your bottom for a moment or two, in the lounge is you're welcome. You're welcome in this establishment. Terrific establishment. Very well run. Lovely people. And delight, and thank God, such a historic hotel, because it is considered to be the cradle of American independence, because Tom Paine wrote his Rights of Man here, and it's got everything that you could wish. And if you look behind me, you can see the beams, which are 16th century beams, and not been tampered with since. The roof is holding up. And all in all, you get a full sense of history, and particularly the relationship with the United States. So there you are. That's where we are, and that's what we're doing. So we will turn now to the newspapers, and I'm afraid it's lots of economic woes headlining this morning, as if we haven't had enough already. That it's coming in thick and fast. And I'll tell you one thing: is a lot of people are better get back to work to generate the wealth which we need to get us back on track. Nobody's going to work. They will get used to this lockdown stuff. Work from home, my foot. That's why it takes 20 hours for instance, the bank to answer the phone. Is they're all at home. They're looking after the Kellogg's and the Poochie instead of answering the phone. Yeah, we know their tricks. And let's see if we can tempt you with a few other things as the morning goes by. We may have a guest or two pop in, and if you're in the area of the White Hart, in you come. And what you do, you muscle your way into the bar and you say, "Hi, I'm here to appear on telly." And appear on telly you will. And you can have your say about anything you want, whether you want to promote your business, whether you want to promote yourself, or whether you want to talk about the state of the union. Anyway, later on, Melissa Conti will be with us from New York, and she'll be casting her eye on what's happening here and letting us know what our cousins across the pond think of the shenanigans that we are experiencing in this part of the world. I'm going to move this camera around a little bit, if you don't mind. Okay. The Times: bank rates rise to head off spiraling inflation. So what has it got to say about that? The news that the UK is facing its longest recession in almost 100 years. The Times notes that the country is facing a 2-year downturn, a 2-year downturn, with unemployment forecast to almost double. And yet we've got full employment at the moment, according to the statistics. So that sure is a downturn, a sharp downturn. It comes as the Bank of England raised interest rates in a bid to tackle spiraling inflation. The paper says around 3 million people are facing an extra £3,000 a year in mortgage repayments due to the decision. You know, with all due respect, people do tend to act very precipitously. The housing market in Lewis just boomed during lockdown, despite warnings that the bubble was bound to burst. Did they listen? No. They bought very expensive houses, and now they're paying the price, perhaps even having to give them up, which is a tragedy. No one wants to give up their home. No one wants to give up their property. But if this scenario is accurate and true, then a number of people are going to face costs that are impossible to meet. The Daily Telegraph: Hunt set to launch a capital gains raid. Basically, he's going to tax, whether it be windfall or permanently, he's going to tax big business. Hooray, some people may say. But, there has to be a balance, a happy balance. Yes, we all get upset at the massive profits that the big companies make. And they have been somewhat guilty about stuffing some of that cash into the pockets of their investors and stashing some of that cash into the pockets of their senior management. But generally speaking, a business cannot flourish unless it makes a profit, because it needs to reinvest in its infrastructure and into its operations to either advance or, in some cases, stay still. Yes, partly. He wants a capital gains tax on business to plug the government's 50 billion fiscal black hole. Hunt and Prime Minister Rishi Sunak are understood to agree that those with the broadest shoulders should bear the bulk of measures taken to shore up public finances. Some businesses raise concerns that it could undermine their ability to operate. So we go tread a very fine line. All those people applauding the fact they're going to raid businesses, be careful. Be careful what you wish for. Because much as we have excoriated big business for excessive profits and excessive spending and so on and so forth, is nonetheless we can't do without them. That is a major part of the economy. Although I would remind the government that, according to their own figures, in excess of 90% of the British economy is made up of SMEs, small to medium-sized enterprises. So don't go overboard looking after the big boys. Succor the young guys and the little guys, because they are your meat and drink, and you sometimes forget that. All right. The I. Britain faces the longest ever recession in toxic shock. The I leads on the news of the economic challenge facing the UK, with the paper reporting that Chancellor Jeremy Hunt accused Liz Truss's government of having had its head stuck in the sand over the scale of the crisis. Well, they're starting again. They're starting fighting. No, they'll go to fighting, and then they'll forget who they're supposed to be serving. But there we are. That's the way it is. The Financial Times, the Bank of England takes a dovish stance despite the biggest rate rise for 30 years. So what does the FT have to say? That interest rates are unlikely to rise much further. With the Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey saying that the forecasted recession will likely bring inflation back down to the bank's 2% target. But the paper warns the bank is grappling with spiraling inflation that could rise as high as 10.9%. Very gum, lad. The Metro. This will hurt. Bank warns of the longest recession ever, with the biggest rates rise in 33 years. Well, now that counters what the FT was saying a moment ago, where the Bank of England governor is saying he doesn't think that they'll have to rise that much. But there we are, we get different points of view. The Metro also splashes on the UK's economic woes, with its front page noting that Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has forecast a very tough time for families as he tries to get the public finances back under control. The Daily Express. Stormy times ahead as the UK faces the longest recession. So they're all on the same theme, economic theme, about the tough time that we're actually going to face. Is ahead of us. It reports that a recession has hit the UK sooner than officials expected, with the economy entering a challenging downturn in the summer, rather than at the end of the year, as previously expected. Well, we got it early. The Guardian failed at every stage. The Guardian goes away from the economy for a change, and it's the family's anger at the Arena bomb response. And what he's talking about is the Manchester Arena bombing in 2017. And it leads with the damaging verdict of a judge who says a man who bled to death after the Manchester Arena bombing was failed at every stage by emergency services. Victims of the bombing were left with an interminable wait for aid due to serious failures on the part of the emergency services. The judge also says that one man, John Atkinson, who died from his injuries, could and should have survived. The chief of the city's emergency services issued apologies and admitted a great deal went wrong. There you go. Mirror. Safi fought, but she was let down. It shows the picture of a little girl who died and saying the two victims that could have been saved. The Mirror splashes with a striking picture of 8-year-old Safi Rose Roussos, who was killed at the Manchester Arena bombings. Her parents tell the paper they believe their daughter could have survived her injuries if the emergency response hadn't been so poor. Her father tells the paper she was badly let down by officials. Well, they are. They're having a kicking, taking a kicking. The Daily Mail. What on earth has happened to our 999 services? It goes on to say what happened to that service after they were accused of leaving victims of the bombing dying on the floor without dignity and of failing far below the standard they should have reached. The Sun. Here we go. Here we go with the Sun. HMS Wag sets sail, but no three lions on the ship. It's talking about, of course, the World Cup in Qatar. It says there's a luxury liner, which it dubs HMS Wag, is sailing towards Qatar, where it will house the wives and girlfriends, often dubbed wags, by the tabloids of England World Cup squad. But the paper says the footballers have been banned from stepping foot on the massive ship, with the stars confined to a hotel bubble. So there, don't take your wife to work. Not worth it. The Daily Star, squeaky bum time. It says, copycat rubber freaks run amok, and you thought this year couldn't get any weirder. Rise of the gimposters. Oh, what on earth is that about? God bless them. The Daily Star reports that police fear an army of latex-wearing men could be running amok on Britain's streets after a man in latex was arrested by officers. The story is accompanied by an attention-grabbing image, as the tabloid says, and you thought this year couldn't get any weirder. Well, there you are, the economy and the emergency service on the front pages this morning with little aberrations from the Sun and the Star. Super stuff, wonderful stuff. And some of this you can't make up. You really can't. A couple of things that were in the local arena overnight, I think, that might be worth taking a look at. Have to go to somewhere else to get that information. Here we are. Well, let's look at the local news headlines. It's adding insult to injury. An owner faces a huge bill after storm floods his pub. Let's see what that has to say. And this is all Sussex news, by the way. And it's an East Sussex pub during the cost of living crisis. The White Hart pub. Nick Lloyd in the basement of his pub during the flooding. Where is that White Hart pub? Let's see, in Buxted. The lovely little village, some 5 or 6 miles north, perhaps a little bit more, of Lewes. It is a lovely little village. A very interesting church there. 2 reasons being, first of all, it stands on its own. And in the past, Lord of the Manor, who owned the lands surrounding it, decided he wanted a deer park. And he actually cleared all the villagers and the village off his land, only to be told he could not pull down the church. because it was on sacred ground. So the church stands in all its glory, quite isolated from the village. Secondly, it has a yew tree there that they believe is over 2,000 years old. In other words, it was growing there before Christ. Very interesting village, Buxted. But anyway, the pub was flooded, and it's likely that other floods are happening across the county. Mark Brown trial reaches day 12 of the prosecution. Let's just take a look at that. The Mark Brown murder trial is updates as day 12 of prosecution evidence is expected. The Mark Brown murder trial is at Hove Crown Court. That's where it's taking place. Brown has been on trial since November the 18th, accused of killing two mums. And the defendant of St. Leonard's has denied both charges on the murder. And a rag and moan man is praised after posting in local Facebook group about the firework plan. Oh, we must read more about that. Is a rag and bone man. I didn't know we had rag and bone men anymore. But there we are. He's praised by Heathfield neighbours after posting in local Facebook group about fireworks display. With Bonfire night rapidly approaching, which is tomorrow night, fireworks seem to be going off across Sussex almost every evening. And that is from a planned event or people hosting their own private firework displays from the comfort of their back gardens. While many people may not think to alert neighbours when firing off fireworks into the sky, a rag and bone man showed his extra caring side after taking to Facebook to inform residents of his plans for a firework display at his home. Oh, right, okay. Well, when we got down to those stories, I guess we can leave it. We'll come back, of course, to the papers in due course. But for the moment, let us go to Potter's Wheel, our favourite little place to take a breather. Just for a minute. Priory Park. Right, okay, well, you better take me back. There we go. I was just glancing through the inside pages of the Mail. The inquiry chairman's anger over the serious shortcomings of the emergency response at the Manchester Arena. And he said, jail first aid chiefs who don't employ enough trained emergency staff. Well, you know, the funny thing is that the first thing that gets cut in any company or organization is training. And it shows. It shows. And when I say it shows, the first place is look at your regular mainstream television operation. God, 80% of the people that are on it aren't trained, and they show it. And it's amateurish. We may be amateurish, but then we're only a tiny little operation. But you watch the mainstream, who have the bulk of the responsibility to bring us both news and entertainment, and it is bloody awful. On top of which is the mass of programs are something like reality programs of one sort or another. Even down to one of them is how do you like your man nude? They have naked people strutting around looking at one another to decide whether they fancy them. That is cheap broadcasting. Money is not being spent on broadcasting, except for just a few. But you can't just pay a few huge amounts and then get away with putting out cheap broadcasting for the rest of it. And if anybody should take a look at it, or anything, is the media and culture and sports minister, new though she is, should take a look at all this. There should be a mandatory training period. But I've experienced it. I've taken people from, young Max Hurd, Mad Max as we call him. He came to us as a student. We recognized a little bit of potential. He's got a long way to go, but he's working hard to master his craft. We had other students who lasted for 2 or 3 weeks because television is tough and they hadn't expected it. And they didn't really have the training to get into active enterprise in the television world. Oh, their technical skills were good. Yes, they could edit, they could use the camera, but they had no concept of what a program was about, or how television was viewed, or how you look after your viewers. And it's a lack of training. I'm sorry, the universities are not fulfilling it. In my opinion, media should not be a university course anyway. It's nonsense. A degree in media, what the hell does that mean? What we need are people who are trained to report accurately and properly, to put together decent programs that entertain and inform, and to, generally speaking, fill our screens with quality broadcasting, quality programs. And they're not doing it. They're not doing it. And the emergency services are showing what happens in the real world when you're not properly trained. Get back on track. Ministers urge to sort out rail strikes. Advertisers are turning away from Musk's Twitter hellscape. And TikTok, China staff can access your data. So all that social media is okay for you under 30s. For an old fart like me, I don't really totally understand it, so I can't get excited about it. But as I understand it, is what we've done is we've allowed some access to foreign powers into our social media systems, which can actually provide then information which they shouldn't have. Coming back, 007, all is forgiven. Just mentioning 007, I actually knew the original 007. He died about 3 or 4 years ago. He was related to people who live in Lewis. And I say a nice man because I'm quite sure that John could slit your throat with a smile on his face. But I got along famously with him. I considered him to be a friend. I never, ever met more than once his controller. But the first time that I met John, I did meet Gus, who was the M of the present services, the likes of which have gone now. Cyber attention to crime and to international crime and to the 007s of this world are rapidly taking over. There's still one or two with a smile and a debonair look who will put a gun to your head and have no qualms without pulling the trigger. Believe me. Anything else on the scene? The greatest danger to prosperity, piling on yet more hardship. Yes, obviously everybody's. Let's see. Now your Apple Watch can stop nightmares. By golly, the claims that they make for modern technology, and actually the fact of the matter is, a lot of it doesn't bloody well work. They make these claims, and then you find yourself faffing around. Okay, let's see. Bill Nike is getting a very, very good review in something called Living. Is that the one? Let's have a closer look, because I'm a great fan of Bill Nike's. I think he's a terrific actor. Yes, in Living. It's 102 minutes long. It's classified as 12A, and the verdict from Brian Viner, who is writing in the Mail, is a quiet masterpiece. Well, that's what I'm going to have to see. Right, all right. Sports pages, as you would imagine, full of football and who's to say what in Qatar and all that sort of stuff. Oh, right, you are indeed. Where are we? I'm trying to look at the time. 9:06. It's 6 minutes past 9 o'clock, and we are full flow this morning. The fact of the matter is that, in my opinion, for what that is worth, but I give it anyway every day, is as a nation we have to get back to work. You know, it's funny, is because I work away from home quite a bit. I noticed traffic patterns. I was in London the other day, and I got onto the Underground to go out to Hammersmith, and I could have any seat that I wanted, and that was in the rush hour at 8 o'clock in the morning. Any seat on the Underground I could have had. Where are all the people who are supposed to go to the offices? You know, it's all very well to say, yes, work from home and so on and so forth. But, you know, there are two things. One, working in an office means there is an interface of ideas and suggestions, and even a little grumble, if you like. And the other thing is that you stoke the local economy. You stoke the local pubs. You stoke the local stores, whether they be selling Rolls Royces or whether they be selling chewing gum. All that has changed and is gone, and very few people are referring to it. And it's typical of the me generation. Are we doing what's good for the economy? Are we doing what's good for the country? No, we're not. It's all about what's good for the individual. Well, there's got to be a balance. I agree that the individual needs to be looked after. The individual needs a great measure of freedom. The individual is important to the state. And that is a balance that is slowly being redressed. But also, there is a responsibility to the country as a whole, a sense of duty, which is missing and lacking. And it's time we got back to all of us adopting a sense of duty, a sense that we need to contribute to our society, to make it tick again, not TikTok, tick again. That sense of duty our forefathers had. We've lost it. But their society, in many ways, well, the society in which for much of my life I grew up in, was healthy and robust. No, we didn't have computers. We didn't have computer games. We didn't have 200-pound trainers. We didn't have a lot of things, and I'm not complaining about that at all. If those things are necessary to the well-being and happiness of modern-day youth and modern-day citizens, so be it. But also, what we have got to do is to say, how far can we go in funding all these things for individuals when we are not funding through ideas, through a sense of duty, the state and what it stands for. And in many ways, the woes that we are facing at the moment are as much to do with lacking a sense of duty as they are to bad management. Yeah, that's my rate. That's my ranting. Good rant, wasn't it? Yeah. Right. What shall we do? Actually, I know what we're going to do. It's just that I would like to take let's see. The papers. There's nothing that's been added since I went through them. Let's tweak the tales. of the energy companies. I just love this one.
Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps.
Well, I love that one. It's because the power companies are far from blameless in where we are at the moment. One of the things that is very pleasant about Lewis, I mean, I've always been a very early riser because of being a journalist, and I'm used to getting up very early in the morning, even on my days off. And one of the great joys that I had for a period of my life, matter of fact, I still do have some fun with him, is that we have a chap on the high street, and many of you will have seen him with his ladders and his cloth. Andy, the window cleaner. A lovely, lovely man. He's always got a smile on his face. He's very, very popular. And all in all, a jolly nice chap. A really jolly nice chap. And I think that we did about perhaps almost a year ago now, a little interview with him, because we said, you know, any man who can get up in the morning and be cheery the way that he does and perform the duty that he does, the service that he does, has got to be worthwhile talking to. And in fact, he was. One of my favorite things is sitting outside when it's sunshiny, now that we can, in a pub, and talking to those people who get the day going, and who have I been meeting for years and years and years, is but Andy the window, a terrific character that everybody knows. Andy, how long have you been doing this?
Approximately years.
28 years?
Yeah.
So you've seen some changes here?
Yeah, certainly, yes. Certainly, yeah. From the
What was it like 28 years ago?
So I can't honestly remember, Keith. I'm at that age now where the memories go. It was, certainly different and certainly busier.
Tell me, what's it like? Because you and I used to have a race to get to the high street first.
Oh, yes, yeah.
6 o'clock in the morning, yeah. We used to have a wager on it. But tell me, you know, in those days it was empty, but times have changed. What is it like at 7 o'clock in the morning here in Lewis?
7 o'clock now is more like it used to be at maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock. There's nobody about. I don't find anybody. Even up to 9 o'clock, the town's still quite quiet. And obviously, since the lockdown and the shops reopening, it's sort of 10 o'clock in the morning before the shops are opening. So it's a lot quieter than I've ever known it, really.
But you put in a fair old day. I mean, you're here early and you finish late.
Yeah, I do, Keith. I'm glad you brought it up. A lot of people think I don't, but I do. Yeah.
You clean windows for the businesses, and I must say, one hell of a job you do too. They all look sparkling. But as they drift in, who are the first people to get to their shops? And you know, we always think of shops opening at 9, but there must be a lot of people who get there well ahead of you.
Yeah, certainly. You've got Sharon at Bedworths and Lucy. They're there quite often, certainly by 8 o'clock in the mornings now, getting their shop ready for opening at 9. I see them if I'm working this top of town. Obviously the girls going to work in Cafe Nero again. Yeah, again, Keith, it's not like it was. It's I'd really be racking my brains to say at 7 o'clock if I see anybody, really.
What did you do through lockdown?
I've done a lot of gardening, a lot of walking, lots of shopping, lots of housework. So I've had one happy life. So,
right.
And that's so that's still good too.
Is she glad to get you out through the front door?
No, my wife works longer hours than me, so she goes out the door with me at about 6 o'clock every morning now. And she won't get home till about 6 in the evening, so I'm generally home. So I do the shopping probably on the way home today.
Now, over the years, you must have peered in through a window and seen a few things and thought, oh my goodness me, I better move on. Anything that sticks out in your mind?
When not so much doing the shops, but certainly when I was younger and I used to do the house windows, I saw quite a few things where you had to pretend you hadn't seen, and when they answered the door, you said, "Oh, sorry," but it's quite embarrassing for them and me.
It's always nice to know that the window cleaner has got a zip on his mouth.
There were certainly some signs.
Not that I would do anything wrong. But,
No, exactly.
So, what does the future hold, Andy?
I don't know for me, Keith, really. I mean, I'm looking at it now, my work just gets less and less, but I love what I do and I love coming into the town. Even though I don't live in the town, I love to work here. The work's getting less and less, so I maybe have to do it on a part-time basis and get another outlet somewhere else. So.
Well, people certainly enjoy you. I mean, you're a breath of fresh air first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
Do you find that everybody quips with you, or some people are a bit grumpy?
No, certainly not. No, I can't think of anybody who's off with me in the morning or whatever time of day. Most people are quite cheerful, and I think they like it that I'm cheerful, so it helps them. So I hope it does.
One thing that I always admire you for, I admire you for a lot of things, I may say, because I think that not a lot of people can do your job. But one of the things that I admired was some of the big boys moved in.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. And you saw them off.
No, unfortunately, I did at first, but unfortunately, like the restaurants, they've gone now, Prezzo. I used to clean Prezzo, Pizza Express and Ask. But they all went national company overnight on me. So I lost them, and they were all like 2.5 hour jobs. So I lost a day's work overnight with them. To be honest, I lost them. Probably about 5 years ago. And that was quite a dent in my income.
Yeah, I mean, you're such a favourite. So you stay with all the favourites, I think.
Oh, certainly, yeah. I mean, the independents and some of the national companies.
Big business, stay away. We don't want you. Andy, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah, and you, Kev.
And we like to talk to people who start off early in the day and find out what it's like in the midst, because as you say, at the moment it's quiet.
Oh, certainly.
But who knows what the future holds.
Let's hope it turns out for the best for us all. If anybody commercial wants a window cleaner shops, restaurants, offices or pubs, I'm certainly there to help you.
Okay, and that's Andy, and you can get in touch with him through Mirador Television. We'll pass any messages where you want him along, because not only does he do an excellent job, but he's bloody good company as well.
Cheers, Keith.
Andy, lovely to see you.
Flapping of the mouth again without any sound coming out. Oh gosh. We're seeing little bits and pieces coming through on the internal thing, but some of them are in a foreign language, so I can't tell what they're saying. But there we go. Barbara Bradley is poking her nose in this morning. A wonderful lady. Right throughout the Troubles, she sang professionally. She's a great singer, but she sang in the army camps and kept up the morale of the troops. She was almost the sweetheart of the forces in Northern Ireland. Except it was very difficult to be the sweetheart of the forces in Northern Ireland because it was a different type of war. It was a terrorist war. God bless you, Barbara, and her husband, Tony, who was a solicitor, and they, along with many of us, they were born and raised there, but from 1975 to 1990, withstood the terrorists, and they were the backbone of Northern Ireland. They were terrific people because they kept a normal life going. Oh, we had some marvelous times. We had our squabbles, but I can remember that one of the things that happened was we had a party at the Bradley house. Actually, Barbara Palmer is her stage name. Her husband's name is Bradley, Tony. We had a party in which we played strip poker, and I lost. And I had to run around the house naked. That frightened the bloody terrorists off, I'll tell you. So well done, Barbara, and lovely people you are. And they have 3 lovely children who now all hold senior positions in the world and are making their contributions. So, people are very important. Yes, we're all. Look at me. I'm a right old fart. I grumble. I'm a curmudgeon. I'm everything that people try to avoid. But one way or another, I make a little bit of a contribution. I like to think I'm a bit colourful, and I know so many people who are like that. They're sometimes the most difficult people in the world to get along with, but they are so colourful that you can't help but love them, and they make great contributions. Don't ever denigrate somebody who may be a little awkward. One of the great characters in Lewis was Tony Burton. Tony had a big, long, successful career in South Africa with South African breweries, I believe. He was a friend of Cubby Broccoli, who made all the James Bond movies, and he came to Lewis and took over the tenancy of the Crown Hotel, the now defunct Crown. And during his tenancy there, he had a grand piano moved in, and there were terrific concerts in the lounge, in the bar. And he then supported his daughter in a high street clothes shop, which only just closed a year ago, Capuccio. So Tony was as big a curmudgeon as you could ever wish to meet. He was always grumbling and rowing. In this hotel, he actually came, and I first met him because he was in the dining room and he was playing the piano. Absolutely marvelous. I can see some movement in the background. Oh God, the other old curmudgeon is here. Stand by. Eh?
Don't take the Lord's name. Well, listen, you miserable old curmudgeon. I actually came to save your bacon because with some amazing stories.
Oh,
I actually can't have them until I have your apology. Oh, yeah.
Anyway, just to finish off, Tony was a great character, and I remember sitting in the Lewis Arms, and a lovely lady, well known around Lewis, and whose name, of course, right at this very second I can't remember, was the landlady, and Tony was sitting there, and he was having bubble and squeak. And he said, "You cannot make bubble and squeak without lard in it. It's got to have lard." She'd made the bubble and squeak specially for him. But he couldn't do anything but having a go. Dear old Tony, much missed. And in fact, talk about colourful characters, because when he retired, fully retired, he kicked around with 2 other retired people. One was Sid Stonehouse, who owned the Gardener's Arms. And Sid was a practicing Catholic, and each year clambered up at this time of the year to put the "No Popery Here" sign, realizing it and accepting it as a historical thing and not an ethnic or religious slur. And the third one was a chap whose name was Jack. I don't remember his last name, but he was the landlord of the Pelham Arms, and he was also retired. And he was interesting because he was only about 5'3" and got bandy legs. And he got them because as a boy, he was born on the barges. And his job was to lie on his back on the barge. And when they, in the canals, they got to the tunnels, he would put his feet on the roof and steer the barge through with his legs. A little boy running along underneath the tunnel. But anyway, the 3 of them kicked around town, and they would go to the various pubs and they would do things together. Very, very colourful characters, and they were known as Freeman, Hardy, and Willis. Oh dear, some of these people that have passed on from Lewis, it's very sad. It's very sad indeed. But anyway, we got the old curmudgeon there to take over, so all is not lost. And actually,
you're an older curmudgeon.
One of the things I may say that Tony is doing, Stuart is doing, which is a major contribution to this town, is he is a journalist of some considerable note, but particularly overseas. And strangely enough, we served in same places, although we didn't know one another terribly well in those days. But he now brings down to interview on the program on this show called Conversation with Stuart Dolby, and he brings these people down to give us the benefit of their wide experience, and it is wide experience, and they are very articulate people, and he's had some crackers, some real crackers, and he's got a few more lined up, so don't miss that. Normally he does it on a Wednesday, but they do appear ad hoc as well, so something to relish. And if you do tune in, you'll find that his interviewees are worldly, interesting, exciting, and have, like Stuart, traveled the world, and the adventures that they've got up to are well worthwhile listening to. Oh, that took me a long time. Right,
about
Here we go. We're back again. Now, the old man has come in with a couple of very interesting stories, and locally, renewable energy stories. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. If you sit there, and I'll move us around.
Well, this has a local resonance as well, in the sense that, well, I'll explain it to you when I can get past you.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
You old fool.
He's always this polite to me, you know.
Yeah, well, he's much older than me, you know.
Yeah. He's got a charming wife. Don't worry, she keeps him under control. Just as well, too, for God's sake. I can't.
My friends at the Financial Times used to say there's nobody should boss Stuart around because he just wouldn't listen. Anyway, look, this is very, very interesting, right? No,
lift the rim of your hat a little so that people can see your face.
Yeah, all right. Well,
You've got rather a nice face. You've got a lovely smile, by the way.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah. We just don't see it often enough.
Why are you joking? You got old Mad Max to deal with. Oh.
Right. Okay. Tell your story because it's local and it is very topical at the moment. Very topical.
No, I can't find it now.
Okay, we'll give you a moment or two.
Well, I'll tell you the other very interesting piece of news. This morning, it seems that the government is going to investigate the problem to not go ahead with Hinkley C. That's the one on the Suffolk coastline. Okay?
Oh, right.
And it's also the one that EDF had. And and it was various people saying, no, we shouldn't be investing in renewable energy, in nuclear, and we certainly shouldn't go ahead with Hinkley Point, with the one in Sizewell C. Now, the reasons that this professor from Sussex University said we should just go all the investment in renewables, which is wind power and solar power. Now, as you know, I've been saying for years, on my website, greenbarrel.com, which is about trying to get investment in renewable energy companies. And it was very difficult because a lot of these companies went bust. So eventually, what's I saying? I lost my plot here. So when investment in renewable energy.
That's right.
Well, anyway, times goes on, and Boris apparently said it would, before he left the office, he had put up 700 billion for more nuclear power stations. But it's not, the people are worried about nuclear waste. It's the absolute cost for Point 41. Our EDS Incley Point was commissioned in 2011 when it was supposed to go into business in 2013. Now it's not going to be available for 2026. Secondly, the same thing is secondly, so his professor says it's just good the investment in renewable energy. So that's, we leave it at that. And then it turns out that Hinkley Point wasn't very, very reliable, totally reliable. But then when Boris managed to persuade them we could also have one in Sizewell C, that was because an earlier bribe by John Osborne to get the Chinese in. Well, anyway, the Chinese are not involved, but the waiting time for it to come into the should be about 15 years. Well, by the time, by the time we'll all be dead, Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting. It's part of the, of Rishi Sunak and what's his name?
Yes, I know. Mr. Jeremy Hunt.
Mr. Jeremy Hunt. Yeah.
Mr. Jeremy Hunt.
Well, they are looking at, curtailing public finances, aren't they? Public support.
Yeah. Oh, they're looking for places to cut.
They look everywhere to cut.
So if it's a few billion,
they're having a real examination of whether this should go ahead, and I believe it won't go ahead for the reason it's not simply waste, it's the cost and the time delay. The time before, by that time, we'll all be blown to
smithereens.
That's interesting.
Aye.
Now the other second one is very, very interesting. It's a local issue. We haven't got any nuclear power stations so far. Right. LED bill clincher, I know all about that. All of that.
So this is Ivesco that you're going to talk about?
Whose office is just across the road.
Right. Okay. We are in the heart of Lewis, yes.
It says here, Stuart, from Keith Hayes. I think your message.
Yes, you've got a hack.
Have I?
Yes. Stuart is just reading something I sent to him last night. He's been sending me emails which say, have you actually applied for this grant and so on and so forth? And it's all a con. So you need to take a look at that.
I know about that. It's Julian, my colleague, mentioned it to me.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Find the real story.
Where the hell is it?
In the meantime, let's just say that the sun is shining at the moment. The weather forecast for today is not bad, all in all, and that we can expect some light winds. And hence, I'm wearing back the good old trilby because it won't get blown off and have to chase down the street after it. But unfortunately, the prognosis for tomorrow night is not so good. It would appear that we're going to have lots of rain and also a moderate breeze. And when they say a moderate breeze, it always makes me think it's going to be a stiff breeze. And I think if it's going to rain a lot and with a stiff breeze as a combination, then we could find ourselves with not a very pleasant bonfire night, which is a great pity because this is the first one really back to full swing after lockdown, and it deserves better. So I'm not very happy about that, and a lot of other people won't be very happy about it. However, as somebody said, the upside is it will cut down on the crowds. Now, I personally like the crowds. The Bonfire Society say they don't like the crowds, but they do like the money that they generate. And the security forces and the powers that be that hate Bonfire with a passion are very happy, because it means they don't have to do as much work as they should. How are you making out?
Not very well.
Right, okay. Don't worry, take your time. It's Oh, I know what we'll do. We'll give him some time, because I started off this morning, and I actually started. What we do is we make a combination of trains, model trains, and some tourist video to take a look at various countries. And I started this one, and I shouldn't have, but here it is. So we'll look at that while Stuart is sorting out his Ivesco story. Okay, now
Another
Stuart has got the story. So paraphrase it, Stuart, the way you just said to me, because it's an interesting story.
Yes, well, look, it's a local story as well. Ovesco, I don't know if people have heard of it, been a company based in Lewis, which actually has been in the renewable sector for such a long time as I had. And recently, the latest project is a solar wind farm up somewhere, up some further north of us. And the district council has actually vetoed said they can't make any contribution to the cost of having this wind farm. And this takes me back. I thought, this is ridiculous. It takes me back to the sustainability meeting I went to in 2019, where Chris Rowland, the CEO of Ovesco, was also there. And there's somebody on the district council, I better not mention his name because it will send me into convulsions. And anyway, what did he say? Yes, we are going to definitely have carbon emissions of zero by 2030. And I said, well, how are you going to do that? I said, well, we're going to have electric charging points. I said, oh, right. Okay. Well, some years on, they put an update. And I said, well, how many charging points have you got in Lewis? Oh, he said, I don't know. Do you know? I said, yes, there's 8. Yeah. And you told you were going to electrify the flipping world. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So there's two counts on which now you're normally the ranting person about this.
Yes, that's
so
right.
There's 2 counts on which the district council have let us down.
Yes. I mean, let's get this straight. This is a renewable energy project being attempted by a local company, and the Green Council, the Green dominated council, have turned down any help.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You know, the trouble is, and I was talking to a former district councillor, still in politics here, who actually is very firm in his views as well. And he was saying it's all very well for these people, the Greens, to get in our confidence, and we vote for them because they're going to do green policies. And all they're doing really is following a political agenda, which has nothing to do with sustainable energy or looking after the environment.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, it's all very well for us to say about the Conservatives who they're going to abandon the triple lock, and that they promised it in their manifesto. But it's endemic right throughout politics. Make the promises and then break them. And really, I've been saying, Stuart, we've got 650 people, members of Parliament in the House of Commons, and not one of them worth anything. Everybody is going back on. They're talking to themselves, and actually, Little John, who is the bigger mouth than I am, is said the other day. His headline is never in all his experience, and he's a long time Fleet Street journalist. Never in his experience has he ever come across a Parliament that is so out of touch with its electorate.
Well, there's the same thing about America. Sort of democracy seems disappearing.
Yeah.
And here, well, what have we had? Five prime ministers in 6 years. The system is broken, isn't it? Basically.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need the system put back together again. Yeah. But actually, Stuart, thanks for coming in with that story, because it's the sort of thing which we need to make people aware of. This is absolute nonsense. And what really upsets me is that the local district council is far better at shouting the odds about all the things that it's doing, only for it eventually to turn out that it's not doing anything at all. We need to change. Yeah. And I'm not advocating any party at all. We just got bad politicians, poor politicians at every level of governance. And we need to change. I don't know who the hell's going to change it, but all we can do is point out that some people have got to start to think about these things. Hopefully, when you go to the polls, is it about 18 months' time locally that we go to the polls again?
No, I think, is it? No.
I don't know.
I think it's
the local
polls.
Year, is it?
The local ones. I thought there's some that coming up now. county ones, aren't there?
It could be, yeah, because we're out of kilter with the rest of the country, aren't we? Every they have them every 2 years, and then we have them every 2 years, and it's only us and one or two more for some strange reason.
Well, anyway, I've got his telephone number at home. I'll get in touch with you later on today.
All right.
And perhaps we can have a quick chat with him.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Or maybe we could. Well, he is actually having a council hall meeting on the 9th.
Might be a good idea if you actually brought him in for energy matters and made
That's
him
what I'm
one of your.
thinking of,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to talk to him, but you're our expert and you know exactly the right questions to ask. I can actually, as you say, I'm the mouth. I can say, Green Council won't support a green project run by a local company.
Yeah.
Ha! Yeah. Oh, it's all right.
Yeah.
They'll be off to a second lunch on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, they rabbit food the old vegans, don't they?
Absolutely.
And also, we've now got a Korean vegan restaurant.
Yeah, I see there. Yes.
Have you been in there yet?
Well, I actually haven't eaten there, but I popped in because I saw it being put together, and they sort of said, "Well, we're not open yet." And there was a lovely man there, and he said, "I'm the father-in-law," and he said, "I'm the electrician. I come in and I do all those bits and pieces." And there was this lovely Korean man, and I said to him, "Look, we have a policy of supporting local businesses, and he can come down anytime into our program to tell us what he's all about and when he's opening properly and so on and so forth." And he's a lovely man, a lovely man.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not sure whether I'm not vegan, but I do like Southeast Asian food, so it might be worthwhile you and I trying it out one day.
You know how to use the chopsticks, do you?
Yeah, oh, chopsticks! I'm a master of chopsticks.
Can you use chopsticks without actually poking yourself in the eye?
Only just, but you know, like you, I was exposed to a lot of Asian people because I was in Vancouver, which is Little Asia, if you like. And what I've learned is that the Chinese take the rice bowl like that and they eat like this, no gap between. So I've taken doing that. Now people think that I'm very rude, very impolite, but nonetheless, I get more rice into my mouth than I do on the floor than most people. Right, shall we? Let's see what else we've got stoked up for you this morning, and we'll take another little break down at the park. Why do we go to the park so frequently? Because it's our buffer, and we call it our potter's wheel. And the reason is when he was young, and I was almost young, is the BBC, when it first started its service, didn't quite understand making programs to time. So it had big gaps in its transmission. And it had a whole series of little films made. One was London to Brighton in 4 minutes. You remember that? But another was The Potter's Wheel. Mo the Potter here, I'm sure, would be thrilled about it. But it showed a pot being made out of clay, and they would show it in between the programs. So this is our little buffer, if you like, between the programs. We call it our Potter's Wheel, whereas in reality, and in fact, it's the lovely park here, the Grange Park. Yeah.
And I just wondered.
We're just talking here. We're having a little chat with Stuart because he is bringing in a lot of quality people to be interviewed, and we were just talking about the people that he's got lined up. It's an interesting lineup. I'm not going to ask you to tell you now, but you watch out for it. Conversations with Stuart Dolby, because they are really, really well worthwhile, and you'll learn things in that you never knew before. We had it was I can't remember which friend from Hong Kong.
Philip.
Philip, that's right. Yes,
his wife's in jail.
And his wife is in jail there for being a political activist, and all she did was to hand out a pamphlet, and he brought us right up to date in where situations stand in Hong Kong. Now, 10 years ago, everybody would have been full of Hong Kong. It was a place to go to. It was an exciting place, food and so on and so forth. Absolutely wonderful. And then it's been taken over by the Chinese, and all predictions have come true. It's almost a state that doesn't want anybody visiting, and it doesn't want many of its people to leave.
Well, it doesn't want the people who are rich to leave. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is that do we now know what's happening in Hong Kong? We do not, and that's when your contacts and your interviewees are so vital for us to find out what's going on.
Actually, we also did that one on coal, didn't we?
Oh yes, we did. You've done some fine things.
The coal one was very interesting, wasn't it? It was all about climate change, wasn't it? And turns out that my colleague Bob Davis knew a lot about what's it, and we interviewed him, and it was opportune because in 2020 the wind stopped blowing, and we were short of energy. So Boris went up to the Drax power station, which was a coal power station, and asked them if they'd come back online so that things can national grids would start up again. And that is what happened basically. Boris had been saying that, right, we must get rid of all renewable energy, of all this, that, and the other. We must actually become self-sufficient in gas. But he had said that he wanted to get rid of coal by 2022. But he's not going to get that now, is he?
No, certainly not.
Well, you've got to understand the missing link in renewable energy is storage. You can't store wind and you can't store solar.
It's like instant. Add water and you get it.
We're talking about that Boris thing. I said to them, why didn't you use gas? Why don't you actually or use nuclear? And he said, because coal is the nearest and the cheapest, and its availability is much better than the nuclear and the wind power. So that was an interesting one, wasn't it? Really?
It was indeed. Right, let's just take a second. Let people know who we are. Energy Matters with Stuart Dolby. Energy Matters, Mirador Television. From the White Hart Hotel in Lewes, Energy Matters.
You're staying here till 11, aren't you?
Say?
You're staying here till 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, come back whenever you feel like it. All right. There you are. If the old man can't stand the pace, he's got to go and have his brandy.
What? What? I've never drank brandy.
It's all right, Mrs. Dolby. He's not really having his brandy. It's whiskey.
Well, actually, I've never drank any whiskey either.
No, actually, strangely enough, one of the things that is strange about booze is I am the happiest drunk unless I drink whiskey. It makes me aggressive. I don't know what it is in there. It does. My wife banned me from. I was allowed one whiskey a year. Just so I can remember what it tasted like. Yeah. Anyway, that's what the Mirador is all about. You've got a whole string of characters of all persuasions. And quite seriously, can I say this, that press freedom throughout the world is under threat. And nowhere more so than in the EU, which is not bothering to monitor the newcomers like Poland and Slovenia and so on, where the press agencies are discovering that the press freedom is being tightened all the time. And now we're finding it a bit in this country, are we not? With some legislation. Yeah.
I've not heard of that.
Well, it's sneaky stuff, you see. Sneaky stuff.
Who sneaks
Yeah, I mean, there's the most recent is some legislation about internet access and so on and so forth, which actually the big issue there is that if a newspaper is sued for libel, it has to pay the costs, whether it wins or loses, and that's iniquitous. You know, how can that be just? And it's another attempt to.
Well, I think the internet has got that damage to it. Well, almost damage to the media, because it changes everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. But
if you think about all the internet and people like Murdoch, who are the internet is a platform for my opinion. Trump and all that kind of, he's allowed to broadcast. You talk about freedom of speech, but the news a lot on TV now is personality led. Like, it's not somebody.
Good morning, guys. You okay?
Good morning. Here is our friend. is our Russian friend who's never been in Russia.
Right. Well, we were praying that you would come and sit on that sofa yesterday, because we had as our guest person doing the interview with me.
Yeah.
Speaks total Russian. He was FT correspondent in Russia, and all kinds of other things. And he was telling us some amazing things, wasn't he, Keith?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. I simply not speak Russian. I'm sorry.
No. After we'd done the interview, we thought of setting up a comedy sketch. You see, you can be the bossy mum.
Oh.
John can be the henpecked husband. I'll be the eldest son who's always going astray. And Keith,
it all happens at the White Hart.
And he was Uncle Keith.
Okay. How are you, wife? Okay.
This is much better, thank you.
Oh, good.
There you are. Characters all around. But just following on from what we're saying is this television channel does not have any isms. As long as people don't actually libel, we allow anybody to express whatever opinion they want. Now, we prefer that it's an opinion based on a substance of knowledge, but nonetheless, we do not restrict anybody. And Stuart, I think we can be very proud of that, because some strange things are said on this television station, but we never libel anybody, and we actually get some debate going. And if you really want to see some debate, watch Mad Max and Stuart on a Wednesday morning. Oh boy, that's theatre. Believe me, it's terrific stuff. Go and get your cup of coffee, and if you're not going to have whiskey in it, put something else in it.
No. You do that.
Well, I would straight away. You know that. Okay, now we've just been talking about
Oh my God!
what?
I found the phone's bloody number.
Oh, we've just been talking about booze and one of the programs that we've got going back to our experts, but we had until recently Fergus Wood, who was our wine expert and a lovely chap he is, and he did all sorts of very good stuff with wine. And guess what? He went off to join the Marines. He's only 24. He's still got his own business. It's still an operation here. But he went off to join the Marines. But here he is talking with Melissa White, one of our former students, about red wine. Go for it, Fergus.
Just a small one.
Red wine production is made basically. They pick all the grapes off the vines. They crush them, so just to release the juices a little bit, help with the whole alcoholic fermentation of the whole thing. And red wine is a little bit different to white wine in that the skins, as well as a little bit of the stems, goes into the sort of the fermentation of it to allow these sort of tannins to come through. And so this tannins are only applicable to red wines, whereas you wouldn't really find them in white wines as well. You just wouldn't find them. Because the skin skins aren't in contact in white wine production making process, okay. So you would just never really get it then. So then after the alcoholic fermentation, where yeast is added just to convert the sugars into alcohol, it then goes through a draining process. It is then crushed a little bit further, or pressed a little bit further anyway, just to release a little bit more of those juices. And then all the wine from the fermentation, from the pressing, goes into storage or maturation. So like the oak barrels, when I mentioned that you can smell like wood or a little bit of oak flavour, this is the sort of maturation period, and it varies depending on where the region is and what the winemaker wants to do or impart flavour onto the wine. And then it goes into bottling after that. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. Should we move on to the next one? Perfect, cool. So we'll pop them onto the side and then we'll compare them later on and see what sort of differences we can do. So this one, The Art of Wine, it's a very pretty bottle, very pretty label. It's got the girl with the pearl earring, which is a very, very, very famous painting by Johannes Vermeer, who's a Dutch painter.
Yeah, I would have said he's not from Chile.
Chile?
Chile?
Yeah.
Sorry. This is how we say it in German. I'm sorry.
Should we do that one again?
No, that's not
so yeah, Chile. So Chilean wines are sort of, again, they lie. It's in the South America. It lies on the west of the country, and benefits also a little bit to to Portuguese wines in terms of their climate as well. So you have the Pacific winds coming in from the west, but you've also got the Andes, which separates Chile and Argentina.
Yeah, it's a bit colder as well.
It's a little bit colder, yeah. So, but it's also a little bit colder, I guess, towards the south of the region. But it can sort of vary as well. But so the winds do help bring that sort of cooling effect to the grapes. But it's also quite, as you work your way up north of the country, obviously it gets closer to the equator. A lot of the wine producers tend to have their vineyards higher up on the mountains and benefit from having a cooler climate up there. Because sometimes, in regions where it is particularly hot, the grapes can get blistered essentially. A bit like if we spend too much time in the sun, these grapes sort of get blistered as well in some sort of way, and that really imparts quite a bad taste or imparts bad flavours onto the grapes essentially. You just wouldn't want to be walking around red all day, would you, if you were sunburning, as us do. So it's a bit similar in that case as well. But Merlot is a particularly very versatile grape as well. It was obviously made famous by the Bordeaux, being a part of a blend in that. And actually the French sort of made it popular in Chile as well. The Spanish brought it over, but the French popularised it in Chile and really got it going in there. And so it's actually one of their most mass exported grapes as well, because it grows so well in this. And this particular comes from the Central Valley, which is one of Chile's largest and probably most famous wine growing areas as well. It stretches a a long way across the country, to be fair. But a lot of grapes really grow well in this sort of warm, dry climate, similar to this, which is again great for growing grapes as well, because it's a bit like any other plant. It requires photosynthesis. So the sun reacts with the water, helping produce glucose or sugar in this, and then that goes straight to the grapes, helping it sort of swell and imparting all the lovely flavours that we get on here.
Yes, there we are. That's Fergus Wood and Melissa White discussing red wine. We've got some more in store from Fergus that we'll play in the coming weeks, because he's very knowledgeable, a very personable young man, and we do wish him well in the army. In fact, several of the girls associated with the television station were very loath to see him go. He was a very handsome chap. But it was a nice success story, because I met him first when he was a waiter in, I call it Wild Bill Hicks. It was Hicks and something, the restaurant which eventually closed. But he said then that he was planning to open up a wine business. He did. It's very successful. And I understand that his father is looking after it while he's busy battling away with the Marines. But a very nice chap indeed. Why shouldn't we actually say well done to people in Lewis, as indeed we have this morning. We've actually trotted through a fair degree of people. Okay, let's just take a time check, because it is 10 minutes past the hour of 10 o'clock. It's the 4th, the eve of Bonfire on Mirador Television, and I suspect that it may be the 4th at 11 minutes past 10 in many other parts of the country. Yes. And why not? In the year 2022, and a year I think we will not forget. The history books will not forget. There are 12 months in this year. We are through 10 and a bit of them, and we've had 10 and a bit crises as we've gone through the year. It has been a year of crisis. Every time a journalist's dream, I suppose, but a nightmare for many of us who live here and work here and try to make a go of it, because a lot of what's happened, a lot of the crises have been adversely affecting business and household incomes, and certainly in the energy sector, a huge rise in bills. So we really, in many ways, are not at all happy with what's happening. We're not very happy with these people.
Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps.
Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit of time off. Stuart is busy seeing if we can get a spokesperson on this local energy story. So I think now is the time for us to catch our breath and perhaps follow one of two little stories we've got. He said, with things immediately going wrong, God only knows why. That file won't open up. Why is that? Why is that? There we go. We've got it. That's in the start of the Mirador. When we had a few more resources than we've got now, we actually did a crime show, and this one was from I think just before lockdown. And you may find it interesting to see what was in the news, crime news then, and what's in the crime news now. So here we go with Casham.
Cash point fraud. It's moving south, so watch your cash carefully. It's a dog's life. If you own one, microchip it. It's now the law. And Lewis Prison, often home to the rich and famous.
A newspaper, please, Dawn.
Certainly, Keith. There we go.
Thank you very much. There you go. Hi, Seb.
Hello.
A pint, please.
No worries. Thank you.
Coffee, please, Kath.
Good morning. There you go, sir.
Thank you very much.
I'm very sorry we don't take card.
It's hard to think now what you can't buy with a credit or debit card. But there are still nice little cafes, like this one, where cash is still king. Or, believe it or not, money is still needed to buy a bus ticket. And then, of course, they're still repaying the tenner you borrowed off a pal and forgot to give back.
Hi, David.
Thanks, David.
How are you? Yeah. Here's that tenner I owe you.
That's very
Oh,
good.
sorry about that. Hi, I'm Keith Hayes with the latest edition of Catch 'em, the crime show that deals with the bad people in Lewis.
It's possible to buy almost anything with a card nowadays, but we do need cash from time to time. And anyway, it's a comfortable feeling to have a fiver or two in your pocket. How do we get it? From cash machines, of course. And the villains know it. There has been a spate of tampering with cash machines in the north of England, and Sussex police are warning the public down here that it's spreading south. Police forces across the country have reported that a number of cash machines have been tampered with or modified so that criminals can get customers' bank details. Thieves tampered with ATMs in the north of England this week, and local police said it is advising the public to be vigilant and report anything suspicious. If it looks as if the machine has been tampered with, call the bank immediately and then call police on 101.
Better safe than sorry.
We're a nation of pet lovers. One man and his dog has been the mantra of the English for an age and a half. But as of this April, dog owners have a new legal responsibility other than walkies, dinner time and cuddles. All dogs throughout the UK must be microchipped. Owners who fail to comply face a fine of £500. Authorities estimate that there are still more than 1 million animals that haven't had a chip inserted. But the law applies to every dog and every owner.
It's now the law.
The chip is about the size of a grain of rice. It's inserted in the loose skin on the back of the neck. The chip contains a code which tells vets or dog catchers who the owners are and where they can be contacted. The scheme is designed to help reunite stray dogs with their families, identify reckless owners, and save local councils thousands of pounds looking after strays. So keep the lead, but get the microchip. It's now the law. Hello, darling. I'll be late home for dinner. How very thoughtful of me to let the good lady know. But if you do it while driving your car on your handheld mobile, it will be an expensive meal. If the police catch you, you'll get 3 penalty points on your licence, £100 fine. And if you have been particularly dangerous while driving, the fine could rise to £1,000 and being disqualified from driving. It's dangerous and has cost lives. But on the outskirts of Lewes, the town's jail looks formidable. It was built in 1853, and over the years has played host to a number of famous names from the world of crime. The Russian prisoners from the Crimea War, who were held in the old naval prison, have become famous over time. There's a monument in St. John sub Castro churchyard to those inmates who died while in captivity. It's paid for by Russia. A play has been written about them, and only recently the Russian ambassador paid a visit to the site. Less well known is that 300 Finnish grenadiers, fighting for the Russians, were incarcerated in Lewes jail, not the naval prison. They were the new prison's first inmates. Several leaders of the Irish Easter Uprising in Dublin of 1916 were held there. They included Eamon de Valera, later the Republic's first president and prime minister. Probably the most famous murderer in the prison was John George Haig. He was known as the acid bath murderer. That's the way he tried to dispose of his victims. He appeared at Lewes Assize Court in July 1949 and was found guilty in just 17 minutes. He was hanged by the then famous Albert Pierrepoint in August 1949. A notorious local murder in 1912 saw John Williams hanged in Lewes prison. Williams shot a police inspector in Eastbourne, for which he paid the ultimate price. The notorious Cray twins, Ronnie and Reggie, were imprisoned in Lewes jail in the 60s. The colourful, so-called celebrity gangsters managed to keep business going as usual while behind bars, hiring out protection teams to Hollywood stars. Frank Sinatra hired 17 of them from the Crays. No prison worth its salt can exist without at least one ghost, and Lewes is no different. Local gossip has it that one of the corridors is haunted by a man in Victorian-style prison garb. He is said to have dropped dead of a seizure when he saw his son enter the same block as a fellow prisoner. So keep your eyes peeled as you pass the prison on the way out of Lewes on the road to Brighton. You never know what you might see. And that's Catch 'em for this week. See you next week for more news about crime around the district.
Well, that was a crime show of a couple of years ago. Doesn't change much, does it? There's still the bad guys out there. We still have problems with bits and pieces of nasty cybercrime and fraud and con men and fakes and so on and so forth. But it might be worthwhile being reminded about the dog and what you need to do for that, because I think it is say 500 quid if you haven't, and that's and particularly with the economy the way it is, that's a nasty chunk of change to pay just for forgetting to look after your dog. Right, I would now just like to remind you what's going on tomorrow, if we can. and it may be that I'm going to have to go somewhere else for a moment and see if we can find a little bit of a clip. And it's a big day. It is a big day in Lewis tomorrow, and we really, one of those things where the whole town stops absolutely still, and we find ourselves following parades and fireworks and all sorts of other good things. I say good things. They are good things. It's an interesting night, to say the least, and it certainly has an impact on what is what goes on. Let's see if we can just show you, give you a little taster of where the action takes place, and what that action is. It should be something somewhere in our little box of tricks to show you, and it's of course, like all things, it's not showing up immediately. I know that we've got something here. I just don't know where to find it for the moment, and that's really silly because it's one of the biggest nights in the year for our town, and we should be able to show you some stuff. I mean, for God's sake, I know it's here, and I'm sorry if I'm farting around looking for it, but there we go. As the vagaries of life as you live it in Lewis, and we no, I just can't lay my hands on it at the moment, so we'll just have to put up with not having it for a minute or two, but it is a big night, and we are going to we're going to from here, from the White Hart, we are going to broadcast with the full force of all our broadcasters from 6 o'clock tomorrow evening until the last rocket is fired, as we put it, with a team that here in the hotel will be myself and the Mad Max. There will be in support Sarah Fitch-Hayes, and Stuart Dolby will be by to lend some comments. And then out in the field, we have Nick Bird, and we have Jane Watkins in Hastings. We have Melissa Conti in New York, and we have Suzanne Musso in New York, and we may well have one or two other people from around the country who, as they look at it, can tell us the reaction they have to this very fine spectacle, and a very fine spectacle it is. So it's a big night, and we intend to reflect that big night. We're not. I mean, let's. We are a community-minded radio station, television station, And what we want is for as many people as possible to see what's going on. So let us say that Rocket Radio, which for years, in fact, it was it came after the radio station that we started in 1997, and it morphed into Rocket Radio, and it is doing a live stream as well. So you've got a choice of us or Rocket, and we're very happy for you to either watch either, because it's important that we get the pictures, we get the sense of occasion, we get the wonderful feeling that is Bonfire Night in Lewis out to you. Many people, of course, who were born and raised in Lewis, or have lived in Lewis, or have experienced Bonfire, like others to see it. So we get a wide reach. Across the United States, Canada, and many other places, even South Africa. We find that we've got people who tap in and want to see us. So there we go. We go in tomorrow. The day starts with a maroon being fired from the that's a type of a banger rocket being fired from the top of the castle of Lewis Castle, and from then on, the Bonfire societies, or 6 of them, get to they gather in their clans, as it were. They organize their parades. They dress up in their wonderful costumes. They prepare their torches and their tar barrels and their effigies, and they parade through the streets individually at first, and then with the grand parade, which starts about 8 o'clock. And that's when we actually see the Cliff Bonfire Society, who don't actually come right into the town. And there's a history behind that, which we'll relate tomorrow night. But they do march up as far as the White Hart, and their costumes are quite magnificent. So we get a good shot of them and all the other people. So it takes about 2 hours for this whole extravaganza to pass one point. And particularly since prayers are said for the fallen, in remembrance of the fallen in all the wars since the First World War, and a very moving ceremony that is. And they also pay homage to the 17 martyrs who were burned at the stake outside this hotel, no more than 50 yards away in the center of Lewis, for their beliefs on the orders of Queen Mary, Queen Bloody Mary. But also, this hotel had its part to play in those burnings, because the wine cellar now, which is a little cramped place, but it acted as one of the dungeons where they kept some of the martyrs before marching them out to be burned at the stake. And in fact, as I understand it, they were burned in tar barrels. And that was a particularly nasty way to die, because the tar set fire before the barrel. And it's not nice being plastered with tar, as you well know. All right, let's... it is 10:32. 10:32. And I think what we will do is, shall we? Shall we? Well, we could, I suppose, yes. Oh, we don't have to, because we have joining us the beautiful, lovely Melissa Conti from New York. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning, Keith. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Now, what time is it there with you?
Early. Yeah, it's 6:30.
Oh, 6:30, because Melissa and I work together on a coast to coast PBS coast to coast business program in throughout the 1990s, and one of them, where we go, morning business report. She was she was the woman in the States who was bossing me around, sitting in London, and but one of the things that we always had difficulty with at this time of the year is when the time change. Because
Yes.
the Americans don't change their clocks at the same time as we do. So the two of us had no idea what time it was. We don't know whether we were supposed to be on the air, not on the air, or whatever, and had to untangle it with just literally minutes to go before we were broadcasting to the American populace. So we've hit that time of year again, and I had no idea what time it was. So we're only 4 hours at the moment. And then when do you change your clocks?
I don't know. Maybe a week,
And then next week,
or maybe
then
it's
we go
this
back
weekend.
to some
It
sort
could
of
be this
sanity.
weekend. I don't know. I haven't been following too much lately, really.
You sound as if you're very, very laid back and relaxed at the moment.
Yeah, see, the only thing that woke me up this morning was the sound of my cat throwing up. So yeah, I'm
Oh
tired.
dear.
I'm very
Yeah.
tired.
Now I know that you've been out having parties in restaurants. Now I hope that you're not burning the candle at both ends.
You know, I must have forgotten that. I it must have been a dream. I forgot those restaurants I was partying at.
Yeah. Well, don't forget
well,
tonight, because you're going out to a restaurant tonight, are you not? Or having a party? No, you're having a
that's
party.
tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, that's right. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's tomorrow night that is Bonfire. For some reason, I'm carried away with the whole thing. I keep thinking it's tonight.
You're
Anyway, we are
frozen.
absolutely delighted
Oh no.
that you're joining us. You'll be able to see the feed. You just pop in and out as you see fit, and chat to us and tell us what you think. But you have been to the White Hart Hotel, and you have been to Lewis, so you know what it's all about and what it's like. So your comments will be particularly pertinent.
Well, I've got my Lewis coffee mug right here, that the mayor gave me. The mayor gave me.
Aha. There we
The
go.
only mayor I will acknowledge in Lewis.
Well,
Stephen Catlett.
can I tell you two things about that? He appeared on Mirador earlier this week, having just a little go, because there are ceremonies that take place throughout Britain in small towns where the money for the Poppy Day, we have Poppy Day, is collected, and only 4 of the councillors turned up, and there are 16 of them, and he was having a go at them, and quite rightly so.
That's terrible.
But also,
that's terrible.
It is, and you know that Stephen is so precise with his language. Is when he decides to have a go at you, you don't even know it until you walk away bruised and think, "Oh my God, what happened there?" But also, I'm not sure whether I told you last week or the last time I spoke to you, is we have a magazine here called the Louisian, and he was featured in the Louisian for a very special reason, that John Agar, who is an international poet, a poet of international standing, wrote a poem about him. And it's a delightful poem. And the poem really centers on the fact that Stephen, out of the goodness of his heart and without any compensation whatsoever, looks after the little gardens around Lewis, and in fact took from scratch a waste piece of ground next door to a very ancient church, and we now call it the Forgotten Garden, but he's made it into a beautiful, beautiful piece of floral display, along with 1 or 2 helpers, and people actually walk through the town just to take a look at this park, and it's his.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
It is, isn't it? And he's your friend. I know he's your friend, and
yes,
I knew that you would want to know that he's been kicking up a fuss in the nicest possible way.
in the Stephen way.
Now, let me ask you something which caught my eye this morning, because apparently Donald Trump has said if he does well in the midterm elections, that he'll throw his hat in the ring and run for president again. What's the reaction in the States to that?
Oh, we're really not. We're heading into fascism, basically, if that be the case, because he will undermine every institution, every law in this country. That's what he'll do. That's what he did when he was here, and he'll continue to do that because he's got this power. People don't understand what he is. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing, folks. You best wake up, because he'll screw you too.
Yeah.
Very dangerous man. This is a dangerous man who will undermine every law, break every law. He doesn't think any of it applies to him. He's a narcissist nutcase. People need to wake up. They're looking at him as the second coming of Jesus. There's some crazy people in this country. I'm not kidding you. They're crazy.
Well, now that's really
they were shouting at a convention for Putin. I'm telling you. That's scary. Well, you know, when you have a president,
a Republican or a Trump.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what Republicans are in my country anymore. I really don't. Are they Trumpies? I don't know what they are. They have no sense of values. Their former values are gone. They've sold their souls to the devil. I'm telling you this right now. This was a man who was who admired Vladimir Putin and admired Kim Jong-un. What does that say to the world about this man? Wake up. Wake up. We don't need that.
Well, I think actually more
think we need
people
that?
outside the United States think he's crackers than people inside the United States.
Well, I mean, people in the United States are crackers. That's basically it. They're nuts. I mean, this is very serious, because there was at one point in the state of Texas, hundreds of people gathered because they thought that Robert Kennedy Jr. or JFK Jr. was coming back to life to run as vice president with Trump. And they all gathered to have a concert in his honor. They're bonkers. They're out of their minds. They really are. No, seriously. They're crazy.
Yeah. I mean, even I wouldn't fall for that. But Melissa, can you give us a little bit of background? How the midterms, he said he would do if he does well. What is the prognostication for that? When he says he'll do well, presumably he means the Republicans.
He owns everything. Do you see what I'm saying to you? He owned the country. There's not a president. That's not a president. Okay, that's a dictator. So
yeah.
I mean, I think what's happening is you got two things at play here. You've got crime and you've got inflation, and everybody blames whoever's in power at the time. So they'll blame the president, even though the president. I mean, you know, it's up to individual states. You've got cities like New York who are, you know, they're having difficulty with crime. There's no question. But we have a mayor right now who is in favor of the police because he was a police officer. But it's going to take some time to really get the city back in shape after COVID and after this horrible mayor we did have, who did nothing. And so that's an issue. And that's an issue that Republicans are playing up. Of course, they did nothing. Inflation is a far more complex issue than, it's the president's fault. So if that's what you think, you really don't understand economics and you don't understand the markets. You don't get it. Because it's a very complex situation. And we're all complicit in the growth of inflation. We all are. Because if we're willing to pay those prices, they're going to keep charging them. Bottom line. That's it. So, you know, those are the two issues here. And so it's very possible that the Republicans might do well. You know, but as you and I know, the whole economic situation is very complex. There are
Yes.
many things there, and I'm going to be very honest with you. There were some things that happened during the Trump administration that created this perfect storm. The ridiculous low interest rates, ridiculously low interest rates encouraged a housing bubble, right? Everybody's got to buy a house.
Yeah.
God, buy a house.
Yeah,
I can't
right,
afford, right?
Yeah.
And so
Same
the
here.
Federal
Yep.
Bank of England, Federal Reserve stepping in to just quell all the craziness. We'll come out of it. We always do. It's just we had COVID. It was a very unusual storm. So now you've got equities and bonds, falling out. Now everybody's looking for something else to make a quick buck with, and that's going to explode. But I just think you got to stick with your tried and true. You got to stick with investing in your own economies. They're not going to go. Not every company in Britain's going bankrupt. I mean, calm down, everybody. They'll come back. It'll come back. So it always does.
Yeah.
So
Let me just return to Donald Trump for a moment, because would he? Let's assume that Republicans do well in midterm, and would he? And he takes that as a sign to run again. Would he actually attempt to tamper with the election? Because there was some suggestion he tampered with the last one, wasn't there?
Of course he will.
well, I mean, it's not even that he tampered with it. He couldn't tamper with it. He just people hated him. He might have tampered with a
Wasn't there
few
some
of them.
suggestion from Hillary Clinton, though, that Trump tried to fix the books?
No, he didn't fix the books in the election at that point. What happened with Hillary? Hillary had some mistakes in her campaign. She could have won. She did win the popular vote, but she didn't win the electoral vote. But a lot of what happened was the shenanigans with the Russian oligarchs, the meetings they had with to try to hurt Hillary, release the emails. So she was always on the defensive. She just ran a lousy campaign, and people didn't like her. And so while people couldn't stand Trump, it was a very close race because people didn't like Hillary. So I'll blame her for that. I don't blame Trump for that. I blame her. Well, yeah, okay, they're crazies who like Trump, but we didn't know the extent of Trump at the time.
No.
Now we do. So if you vote for him now, you're a lunatic.
Yeah,
You truly
but
are.
after 4 years of him more or less ignoring civil liberties and rule of law, could he actually try, and could he succeed in fixing the election if he runs again?
I don't think he'll fix the election. I just think people might be stupid enough to vote for him. I mean, here's what they've done. Here's what they're doing right now. They're moving toward hand counting the ballots. Well, that could take a month to count and get the results. And there's much more likely to be mistakes when you hand count. This is why the banks don't hand count money. Hello, it's called technology. We don't have to hand count anymore. But they're trying to do anything they can to win. Now, whether they fix it or they change the ballots, that remains to be seen. But I wouldn't trust any of them, to be quite honest with you. I just wouldn't. When they were trying to defund the Postal Service so that people couldn't get their ballots in during COVID. Are you serious? Really? Yeah, I mean, our Postal Service is basically almost dead. It's a shame.
Well,
it's a shame.
I'll tell you, it's a very controversial issue too, because basically it's been privatized, and of course that doesn't sit well at all with socialism. But also they keep on finding, oh gosh, the Hungarians are going to buy our post office or whatever, so it gets plenty of controversy. Believe me. But let's go on to nicer things.
Can I just ask you? Can I just ask a question? Why do you all want to privatize everything?
Well, it's because our politics, I think, is far more. I mean, it's often said that you can flip a coin, and or it was said in the past, and there wasn't a great deal between a Democrat and a Republican. Here we have always had the so-called toffs, who are the conservatives in the right wing of politics, and the socialists who would take over everything in the left wing. And one of the left wing's thing is everything should be owned by the states, by the state. I mean, it's a Trotskyite type thing. And for some reason, the Labour Party, the Socialist Party, cling to that. And as a consequence, even middle of the road people, if something goes wrong, for instance, the trains are starting to be late and so on and so forth. Oh, well, what we've got to do is put them back in state control. I mean, the fact that we've got a much better service than we ever got out of the state and the privatization, people forget that. We've got to not anti-privatize them, put them back under state control. So it's really the rather more divergent thinking that we have in this country.
I'm just going to say something about privatization. Okay. When you privatize something and there's no competition, it's a problem. Do you have competing privatized trains?
Well, in a sort of a way.
Or do you have multiple companies controlling the trains, and people have options on which train to go on? Train A, which is owned by Acme Company, or train B, which is owned by, whatever.
Yeah.
Do you have multiple trains you can take, or is it just one corporation that controls it?
Well, there's no simple answer to that. But for instance, in Lewis, when you come here, and I'd take you on a train just so you can have a pretty ride, is you would go on Southern. But if you go on Southern to Brighton, which is a 10-minute ride away, to London, you've got a choice of about 4. If you go the other way to Hastings, you've got a choice of at least 2. But between Lewis and Hastings, you haven't got a choice at all. So it depends where you are in the country.
Yeah, okay. So that makes sense. See, for example, here in the States, we have with the train I take, it's called Metro North, and it's a quasi corporation government partnership. There's no competition. So they're going to charge whatever they're going to charge.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
So another thing is privatizing healthcare. So if you privatize your healthcare system, where do you think the money's going, Keith?
Yeah.
Where's the money going? It's going for profits.
Yes.
It's going to the insurance companies. They got to pay their CEOs. They got to pay their senior executives. They got to pay their bonuses, and they've got to pay their shareholders. Do you think it's going into your care, Keith?
No, it is, and I you make a very valid point. But with our health service, it's more that the NHS has become, which is of course state, has become a huge monster. The old story is how many doctors does it take to change a light bulb? 20.
Right. So my point is that you fix the state-run healthcare system. There are certain things that I don't believe should be privatized. Healthcare and your life or death is not one of them. Because we have a system here that if I lose my job right now, I won't have health insurance.
All right.
It will cost me $2,000 a month to buy it. Do you have $2,000 a month to spend on health insurance?
No, I must say that I'm because I'm old and decrepit, I'm well looked after by the state.
That's what I'm saying. I would have to wait till I'm 65 to be able to get our service. We don't have a service.
That's 40
really.
years.
Exactly. So I'm going to be 40 years without a doctor. I mean, who knows? That might be a good thing. So sometimes you got to count your blessings, Keith, because you all have a system. If you were to have lost your job, you would have had a service, correct?
Yeah,
you would have had health care. I wouldn't. I'd have to pay for my doctors out of my money.
Yeah.
So my doctor might charge me $500 to say hello. I have to pay it.
Yeah. No, the conservative government from time to time have people who mooch the idea of privatizing the health service. But I don't think, certainly not in my lifetime, will I ever see the NHS privatized.
You would
It will
not
stay the
want
way
to.
it is.
That would be the one
What I
thing.
would
That's
like
the
to do,
one
though,
thing.
is see reform at the top.
That would be good. That's a
Yeah.
good idea, but keep it. Keep it. I'm telling you. You don't want what we have. You don't want what we have.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely
So,
not. Yeah. I mean,
anyway,
I couldn't get hangovers half as often as I do because I'd have to pay for my own aspirin.
yeah, and that could be very costly. That could be very costly.
Right now, it's 10:53. Believe it or not, the time is zipping by because we want to hear about Lewis's favorite son. How's he making out in working for NHK? How's the beer brewing? And how are the planes flying?
He'll find out about the planes in the next 2 weeks.
Oh, right.
And when
Next
he's
2
and when
weekends,
he's
right?
going to start training. And as far as NHK, you and I know, being journalists, that this is a very tough profession. You are running
Absolutely.
around, literally running around all day, and so it's a shock for him. But he's getting to cover some very good stories. He's covering the New York City Marathon on Sunday, and he's a runner himself, so that's fun. He's going off to Michigan because there are a couple of key races and a couple of key amendments that are being voted on Tuesday, so they're sending him out to Michigan. So yeah, he's really doing very well. He really, I mean, he doesn't want to be a journalist, but it's a good job for him for now. It keeps him on his
Yeah.
toes, keeps him running.
Well, he's got to follow to some extent in Mom's footsteps.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't
Yes.
want to do that, but
For those people new to our program, is that Melissa was a very, very distinguished journalist in the United States and well known coast to coast. And rubbed shoulders with the great and the good, like Mark Landsman and so on, who are legends in their own time, so White House correspondents. So she knows what she's talking about. But just going back to the marathon on Sunday, do you think you could persuade him to take his phone along? Because I know if he's with the NHK cameras, that'll be NHK material. But could he take his phone along and could he do, say, 2 minutes for Mirador?
I think that should be fairly simple. He can do kind of a selfie thing, and
yeah, that'd be great.
I think he could. I think he could.
That would be terrific.
So I'll
actually,
let him know.
Yeah, one of the things about marathons that is so good, I think, is they are international. Everybody's interested in every marathon wherever it's run.
Right. Well, we'll have him see if he can talk to a British person.
Yeah, well, that would be good. That'd be good.
Can I just tell you? I'm just going to tell you something funny. I speak to British people all the time, all day. I text them all day too. So I used to be very enthralled with your accents, but to me now it's just become normal. I don't even notice it anymore. So yeah,
dear.
I realized that last night.
Am I going to have to start to stretch it and start to sound more English than the English?
Yes, you'll need to do that to impress me now. So yes.
Well, now let's get on to beer, because you're trying to capture the market in the United States on behalf of Harvey's.
Well, we're having, no pun intended, but a bottleneck right now in the process, because the beermeister, is that what their name is? The beermeister has been very busy at his new job. So coming home exhausted, it's very difficult to bottle the cider. And if you're going to expect me to do it, you don't want to eat or drink anything I make. Seriously. So we're having a bit of a bottleneck. I think he's got a Pilsner brewing in his room, and then the cider's in the kitchen, and the cider needs to be bottled. I've got bottles everywhere.
Well, we won't tell Miles Jenner down at Harvey's. We'll just say everything is going along swimmingly.
I don't know if you're going to get a bitter. You might get a Pilsner. I don't know, because I think we're having some bitter issues. The last bitter that he made, it didn't have enough flavor. I mean, it wasn't that it was horrible. It just didn't have the flavor necessary. So he's got to try again, but as you know, that's a long process. And we're
Yes, exactly.
coming up on, well, I'll be arriving in the UK on December 1st.
Right. Gosh, not
Oh,
very far away, 3 weeks.
actually, I'll be across the Atlantic Ocean on the 1st, but I'll land on the 2nd.
Right.
So,
Well, we're looking
so
forward to
excited.
having you here.
Yay.
And we shall see you in Lewis, of course.
Yes, I will. I
Yes.
will definitely visit Lewis. It would be lovely if you could come to London and we can, you can go to the Travelers Club.
Well, we can do that too. Yes, absolutely. And looking
So,
forward to having you here.
yeah, it's going to be lovely, and I look forward to seeing Stephen and Max and Sarah and everyone else, on the Mirador team. Where's Stuart? Is Stuart there today?
Sorry?
Is Stuart there today? Stuart?
Yes.
He's there right
Stuart,
now?
he actually got up and left, having just got a little exclusive story. And he got up and left and chased outside because he's trying to get hold of the guy to be the first. I mean, it is a very typical political story. There is a local investment company struggling a little bit, but it invests in sustainability and green energy and so on. They have got the opportunity to do a wind farm project, and they've gone to the local government, which is dominated by the Greens, to ask for some help financially, and they've turned them down.
That's crazy.
Yes, so Stuart has gone off to chase down that story, which only this morning he came chuffing and very proud of himself, saying, "Gosh, I got a terrific story," and it is a terrific story. It just shows the nonsense of politics.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, tell Stuart I say hello, and I figured he wasn't there when you started talking about social. Oh, is that him? Oh no, that's not him.
No, that's Kevin. Kevin is a naughty man because Kevin actually looks after the bar, and each Tuesday he refreshes the beer, and it needs tasting. So I'm sitting here, and suddenly glasses of beer appear in front of me, and he said, "Here, Keith, try this, try that, try the other." So at 9:30 in the morning, I'm sitting in front of the television cameras drinking beer just to see whether it's palatable.
Well, is it possible for him to also do the same when Connor comes to visit?
Oh, absolutely. Kevin is waiting for him with bated breath. Connor, this is Melissa.
Hello, Melissa.
Hello, how are you?
Here, and he's bringing some beer after having gone around Harvey's, which he's tried to replicate. So you must also be an arbiter. You must try to test his beer, okay?
Yeah, will do.
There you are. It's going to be tested in the White Hart.
I'll tell you, he made a Czech Pilsner that was so good. It was amazing, really good. But it wasn't bottled. It wasn't bottled. It was in the keg, in the refrigerator. We have a keg in the refrigerator.
That refrigerator has seen some booze go through it, I'll tell you.
Oh, and I don't even drink. I drink non-alcoholic beer.
Melissa, believe it or not, we've run out of time. It's 2 minutes past 11. Luckily, we don't have to dive off immediately, but we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow night. I hope you can dive in and out. But just tell me, you're holding a party. Why and what are you going to have at the party?
I think we're going to have like the American Italian fare, like pizza, chicken parmesan, things like that. They're going to come in after the bonfire because, as you know, we have a time difference. So I'll be preparing for that. And they're just friends. There's friends coming over, and my friend's husband's going to paint my bathroom. I'm very excited because I picked the wrong color, so he has to fix it. I can't cook and I can't pick paint color. That's why I have my designer friend in Guildford.
Right. Yes. Oh, yes. That's the only reason. Do you know? I've it's tucked away. I have got a peal of bells in our archive, just ready to haul out at any moment.
Okay. Sounds good.
She slipped through my fingers, folks. Talk about introducing your best friend to a lovely lady.
Oh, yes.
Boy. Oh,
I think I satisfy that quite well. I'm good.
Lovely to see you, darling, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow night on our extended service of Bonfire. We're actually going to have a little dress rehearsal tonight to make sure that all the microphones are in the right place, and then hopefully tomorrow at 6 o'clock we'll be on our way. So
very good.
Go back to bed for a little while.
I have to go to work, Keith.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
And I got to feed the cat.
Darling, we'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye. Well, there we are, Melissa Conti, who will be joining us tomorrow, giving us an American perspective on Bonfire, how they see the spectacle. She's been here to the hotel. She's been here to Lewis, so she's got some idea of what we will see and feel. And so, well, we're going to try and bring you a little bit of the international perspective. And that's Melissa Conti, one of the Mirador team in the United States. And I'm very happy that she's part of our team because she's a great lady. And we are very proud to have her. Okay, let's see. We're going to say goodbye. So what should we say goodbye with? Well, perhaps this sting, which is only 14 seconds long because we are over our time limit. So until tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, and do join us. Keith Hayes, Mirador Television in Lewis, broadcasting from the White Hart Hotel. Toodles, 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 pip.